The boy noticed the teacher, staring at his worn-out shoes with a look of disdain. When he raised his hand to answer a question, the teacher rolled her eyes at him, then turned her attention to a pair of spotless leather shoes. George felt a wave of deep disappointment. At lunch, the other kids Saturday around the table, enjoying their delicious meals, but George came from a struggling family. He came from a struggling family, barely able to make ends meet. A single burger was split 4 ways. That was all the food for their family of 5 for the entire day. But for someone like George, tall and always hungry, it wasn't even close to enough. He joked that if he ever got truly hungry, he could just eat the table in front of him. His sister, worried that he wasn't getting enough to eat, offered him a small bite from her own burger, but George would rather go hungry than take food from his little sister. Every night, his mom reminded him to stay out of trouble at school. If they had to move again, they wouldn't even be able to afford 1 burger a day. When one of his father's students Saturday enjoying a plate of fried chicken, George lowered his head, trying to disappear at the lunch table, but the hunger in his eyes caught the attention of some classmates. They laughed at him. One boy saw exactly what George was thinking, and to mock him, he pulled out a piece of chicken skin. He had no intention of eating it, but waved it around in front of George, then tossed the food he didn't like onto the floor, just to humiliate him. Under the weight of constant insults and pressure, George finally snapped. He stood up abruptly and charged at the boy. A second later, the boy was on the ground. In the end, George was expelled from school. It wasn't the first time he'd been expelled for fighting. His father had walked out on them when he was little, and his mother, just to keep the kids in school, had to keep moving them from place to place. They were so poor they couldn't even afford rent. The 5 of them ended up living in a broken-down, abandoned shack. There was nothing but cold and hunger in that place. That's the world George grew up in, but through his own hard work, he eventually became someone remarkable.